Welcome home. We are WNST, Task Baltimore and Baltimore Positive. We are not doing the Radio Row thing. It's the second time in 27 years we won't be there, but we will be here doing Crab Cake Row. It's 5 straight days, a marathon, 9 to 5 radio, live radio all day. Been a little while since we've done live radio around here, featuring hopefully 100 charities. I think about 60 or 70 signed up right now. We're looking for some more. If you're one of those charities, and that's at BaltimorePositive.com. Monday, we're at Fadley's. Tuesday, we're at Costas in Dundalk. Wednesday, we'll be setting up at Coco's in Lauraville. Thursday, we'll be at State Fair in Catonsville. And then on Friday at Pappas in Cockeysville. Free. Here's the deal. It's a cup of soup or bowl. And Chad Brown's a really smart guy. He went to Colorado. He didn't play for Dion, but he's a smart guy. Played for Belichick, so I know he's smart. And Cowher, so I know he's really smart. You get a free cup of soup or a bowl of soup. So we're calling it a cup of soup or bowl. So say that real fast, and you'll catch on. So you get a free cup of soup or bowl, and you bring us some goods from the Maryland Food Bank, and it's a little bit of cheer. Chad Brown is our guest. He is a longtime NFLer. He's one of my favorite people that I've met at all these radio rows. He had beautiful dogs with him on behalf of military folks. He's always doing a good turn. He's out in Phoenix now doing radio in Denver and still calling college football games. I think last I checked during the plague. Chad, it's been a little while since we got together, but I had to bring you in here seeing the Kyle Van Noys and seeing the Jadeveon Clowneys and seeing the Patrick Queens going to get paid and the Roquan Smiths getting paid. I'm like, I need me a nice rush end linebacker. And the best I saw back in the mid-'90s. You're a pretty good football player back in your day. It's always a pleasure to have you on. How are you?
I'm doing really well, man. Thanks for having me on. Great to catch up with you. Yeah, whenever I think of or see Baltimore Ravens on TV, I always think of my man, you. And yeah, I did a lot of college football this season. Had the Big Ten championship game. I had Alabama, Tennessee, so I had some of the really good games. It was a lot of fun. If there's a camera or microphone during football season, there's a chance I'm talking into it for somebody. And that road continues to move forward and evolve as time goes on.
Well, I mean, you're a Renaissance man, beginning with the snakes and businesses and all that. You still obviously love the game. You played it at a high level. When you see this kind of Kansas City-Baltimore matchup, and we're all sort of licking our wounds here from all of this, but it's the first time in 28 years, and I know you talk about coming in and play at Memorial Stadium back in the day as a Seahawk and all that. It's the first time we thought we were the best team. It's the first time, like, the fan base believed we had to win. We were expected to win. And I wrote on Monday, there were people who just thought they were going to roll the ball out there and beat Patrick Mahomes because they rolled the ball out there and beat San Francisco on Christmas night, beat the Salt out of Detroit, beat up everybody in the way, much like they did in 19. And it's different at playoff time, right? And I think it's different when you have pedigree.
Yeah, I knew this was going to be a close game, but all week I've been saying Baltimore was the best team in the playoffs because of the evidence we saw in the regular season, those wins you just talked about. So I knew Kansas City would be good. I knew Patrick Mahomes would be prepared. I knew Andy Reid would have some creative play calling. I knew Travis Kelce would find a way to step up. But still, I thought Baltimore's got such an amazing defense. Those inside linebackers are off the charts. And there was just so much talent there and so much confidence, momentum, where in the past there was always doubt. Can Lamar do it in the playoffs? This year, we've seen him do it in such big game opportunities. Why would this Sunday be any different? Well, it was different. The disciplined meltdown from the Baltimore Ravens was very disheartening to watch because I think they are the better football team, but the discipline, the Zay Flowers, the roughing the passer penalties, Lamar Jackson throwing into a team meeting in the end zone, taking points off the board, those kind of mistakes in a playoff game against a team that's in its 6th consecutive AFC championship, that's got all that experience and all that confidence, you're going to lose that game. So this is a clear case of more games are lost than are actually won. I want to give a tip of the cap to the Chiefs. They won the game, but the reality is the Ravens lost that game through some undisciplined play that showed up in multiple times in multiple places across the team.
We talk about this all the time, and I had Coach Billick on earlier this week, and there's a really famous game here of a meltdown in Detroit at Ford Field. It was 2006. 2007 is the season it happened, and Suggs was involved and Bart Scott. They picked up the official's flag and threw it, and I mean, it was crazy off the charts. And sometimes it's one guy, it's one hothead, and you got to settle that guy down, or a guy that you sort of know lives a little bit on the edge, and you're a little worried. Don't get us 15. Don't get us 15. Don't be that guy. Referee's watching. This was out of character, out of sync, unlike anything we've seen during the course of the year. And it felt to me, and you can speak to this, Andy Reid knows John Harbaugh better than anybody. Steve Spagnuolo had been identified as John's best friend in the sport for years, worked for John. Dave Tobe, special teams coach, a wonderful guy, also a mentor to John many years ago. It's all one big loving. They know John. They know John's a little hothead and they also knew the place was going to be a cauldron. They knew the fans had never seen anything like an AFC Championship game here. Feels like the Chiefs have been through all of this, and they haven't played a lot of road games, but they played big road, played big every kind of game. And I think there was some coaching involved here with Kelsey and the rest of them to say, be the agitators, be the bullies, be that team. And we think of the Chiefs as being nice guys, and they were agitating a lot of this, and I think it was really part of the game plan. And once it started to work in the pregame, I mean, there's video of Justin Tucker getting into it with Kelsey and Mahomes before the game, and then Arthur Millet got in a fight with half the team. But I mean, they opened the broadcast with the fact that there had been bad blood during warmups, and I know you've been a part of that. You probably were agitating as well as the agitated, but when there's 65,000 people and when there's no one to rein it in, the shocking part is that it happened to more than one player across the team and it never got reined in. And we're going to be talking about it for 9 months here, Chad.
Yeah, because again, the opportunity was there. And, despite being successful franchise like the Ravens are, you recognize these opportunities are rare when they come around. To be in the championship weekend and be widely considered to be the best team in the championship weekend, and having beaten most of the teams who were playing in the championship weekend and beating them handily by double digits, how could you walk into that game other than being confident? Now, I was doing ESPN radio on Sunday, and we had L'Jarius Sneed on, and he said, we felt like in our locker room, like the Ravens, all they thought they had to do was show up, that this was going to be an easy game. So while you're talking about coaching, at least from a Kansas City perspective, they thought the Ravens came in too cocky, and the discipline meltdown that we saw was a result of their overconfidence being met with the reality that the Chiefs were going to come ready to play, and they were not emotionally prepared to handle that. So I suppose over the next 9 months, we'll figure out exactly what it was. Was it just literally an Andy Reid thing of, hey, these guys, they're not used to being poked, so let's go out there and poke the bear every opportunity we can to get them to mentally melt down? I've had that instructions before from my coaches.
I bet you have. That's why I asked.
yeah. And or is it, the fact that they were overconfident? Because you can't help but look back at your season, and every single big time game that you played during the course of the year, you found a way to win it by double digits. So you should be confident based on that. But there's a difference between confidence and cocky. There's a difference between confident knowing we got to still show up and play, and confident and so cocky that you think the other team's going to lay down in front of you. Come on. It's the Chiefs. They won the Super Bowl last year. I know it's been a bit of a rocky year for them, but they are going to show up to play, and they did. And again, I don't think the Chiefs won this as much as the Ravens lost this. And I mean, you can tell me, how is the fan base handling this when Lamar Jackson says after the game he's not frustrated by this? Are you kidding me? This opportunity does not automatically happen. You can't fast forward through the next 11 and a half months and put yourself back exactly where you are. To say you're not frustrated, are you emotionally invested in this or not? Are you willing to live and die for this shit, or are you not? And sometimes when guys have a little bit more of a casual attitude, when they have a little bit, I call it the AAU attitude. When I've coached kids who played a lot of AAU basketball, where they're not playing for their high school team, they're playing for a club team. So there's no real allegiance. And over the course of the year, they're going to play in 150 basketball games. So winning a game, losing a game, it's not as important as much as I look good.
Right.
So is it some of that creeping into that Ravens locker room? Is there some of that, we'll be here next year, and this opportunity is going to stick around forever? Having played 15 years in the NFL, I know this opportunity doesn't come up every year. And when you blow it and your career is done, you look back at, man, we should have had that championship game. We should have been in that Super Bowl. That's always going to be crushing and disappointing. It's easy to shrug your shoulders when you're a player, but once you're retired and you recognize that opportunity is never, ever, ever going to come back, you view it quite differently.
Think it's a little bit more like a Kentucky Derby, right? I mean, like I think about your time with the Steelers and the opportunity there, and I've talked to folks. I talked to Dwan Edwards about losing a Super Bowl this week. I talked to Brian Billick. The first thing he talked about was 1998 Minnesota. We were favored. We had a 10-point lead with 3 minutes. I was at that game. I met Brian that day. I literally met him after that. Met him at the lowest moment of his life, literally, and said, "Yeah, Brian, you got the ring and the trophies behind you. How often you think about Minnesota?" He said, "Well, I spent half my year there, and it's nowhere I can get away from it because they still haven't won. They're still 8 coaches later, 4 regimes like trying to win." We mentioned the Browns, we mentioned the Lions and their golden. I mean, my God, talk about how bad it is here, Chad. Detroit. That's all. That's a different kind of loss this week, right?
I think in Detroit, I think that fan base is recognizing that it was an amazing run and it was an amazing season.
It was
Dan
also a
Campbell,
24/7 lead.
yes, but Dan Campbell, he went for it 34% of the time on fourth down this year. That is the most of any team this century. So to think suddenly in the championship game he was going to change his stripes, that wasn't going to happen. This is how they got there. So you can point to those decisions and the blown lead and all that. I think Detroit fans recognize the best for their football team is ahead of them. While this is a tremendous opportunity, Dan Campbell talked about, you don't know if you're ever going to be back. They will be back. They are built the right way. They've got such a young, awesome core. Gibbs, the running back, Laporta, the tight end. They're super talented, super fast. Jared Goff is a quarterback, I think, who can continue to lead them and be that franchise-style quarterback. So I think the best is ahead of them, and their fan base has probably handled it a little differently because the expectations weren't there all season long like they were for the Ravens.
Well, they will be next year for them, and I don't know where the. Chad Brown is our guest, longtime NFLer and calling football, one of my favorite people because he has snakes that I stay away from, but he loves a lot. The Ravens. So, I mean, I'm only a couple days into this. By the way, we got a new baseball owner here. So, like, you're the last football conversation I need to do for months at this point because everybody's just all into, oh my God, we got a new baseball. And I'm like with you. But just on the football side of this, in the first 3 days, defense coordinator is the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. The long time, and I mean long time. I got pictures of Joe Ortiz and I before either one of us were shaving back in the 90s that I put up. He's going to run the Chargers now with John's brother. Joe Burrow's going to get healthy. Herbert's going to have a coach. Trevor Lawrence is going to come back a year angrier. CJ Stroud's going to come back a year brighter. Deshaun Watson and/or Joe Flacco. The tandem's going to. I had Joe on the show last week too. Cleveland's going to have a quarterback. Pittsburgh's going to get a quarterback. It might get your old guy from Denver, Russell Wilson. I don't know, but the notion that Lamar was sitting at the top of this and had to beat CJ Stroud and only had to beat Mahomes. Chad, every time I've talked about Lamar and people say, is he going to win a Super Bowl? I'm like, they're not going to be the 1 seed, if at all, because we're never the 1 seed. But if they are, they'll get lucky. They were, and they didn't win. Now, so if they're not going to be the 1 seed, they're going to be another seed. So if they're going to be another seed, they're going to play 3 games in January. And those 3 games are going to be some Rubik's Cube combination of what Flacco dealt with, which was Manning, Brady, Roethlisberger. It's going to be 3 Burrow, Mahomes, Allen. It's going to be these guys. And I thought, that's a tall task to ask Lamar to win 3 of those games in January, maybe 2 of them on the road. And this year, it was paved with purple gold, right? Like this was the year that it was made easy. To your point, it'll never be easier. The salary cap, the $15 million wide receiver that played some of the time, the left tackle is a $26 million cap hit who's been injured for 4 years now, the cornerback that has a leg issue that couldn't get on the field, who was their highest paid defensive player. Roquan's nice. Kyle Hamilton's nice. Linderbaum. They have some nice young players, but the band's about to get broken up, and they're about to pick 30th.
Yes. I mean, every team goes through this. At the end of every season, when you project forward to next year, you're going to have somewhere between 25 and 35% turnover on your roster.
But when you're good, the good players leave.
This is true, but you still have Patrick Queen. You'll still have
Lamar. He's gone, by the way. He'll be the first guy getting paid.
You think
he is the they can't afford him.
There is no way they let a player that talented, that foundational to what they do on that side of the ball go. There's
Roquan,
no
they paid
way.
Roquan. They have to pay Matabike. Matabike is going to be the guy that gets the tag because they're going to have to keep him. They let Calais Campbell go last year. They're going to lose a lot of players, and they're going to have a lot of salary cap problems, and they have a $50 million quarterback, which is the first time they've had that in 6 years.
You don't paint a very pretty picture there, my man.
No, it's tough. I mean, I think Eric's going to have a harder time, Bill, and you're going to have a harder time when you pay your quarterback $50 million. I mean, we went through that here with Flacco, where every draft pick had to hit, and when Perryman doesn't hit and can't catch the ball, Joe doesn't have a guy, and they've hit on. That's why they won. Zay Flowers, Kyle Hamilton, Linderbaum. They have been as good in the draft the last couple of years as any team in the league.
Okay, but this past season for the Kansas City Chiefs, the wide receiver room was an incredibly disappointing room for them. It caused them to lose games. Yet and still, they kept plugging away at it, kept just chopping wood, and found a way to find some success later in the season. Now they find themselves back in the Super Bowl again. So,
Valdez Scantling caught the pass that made it happen, right? I mean,
yes,
I had three people say, if he just would have caught two passes during the year, the game would have been in Kansas City.
right. So the thought that just because there's going to be some turnover, that spells the end of this opportunity. Again, you still got Lamar Jackson. There's still talent on the defensive side of the ball. Those young guys you just mentioned are going to grow from their first year to their second year. So I still think of the Ravens as being in a championship opportunity, at championship window. Does some of the changes in the offseason going to affect that? Yes. Could it be a rocky start to next season? But if you've got a true championship pedigree, as the Chiefs had, they just kept finding ways to plug away. And then here at the end of the season, Travis Kelce gets on fire. Patrick Mahomes stops turning the football over. Receivers who couldn't catch a cold now can catch footballs. Who you start doesn't necessarily mean who you'll be at the end of the season. So I still think the Ravens, I have a little bit more of an optimistic outlook than you about their window and their window for opportunity, particularly for next year.
All right, we'll see. We'll see who the players are going to be. Chad Brown is here. Two last things for you. One, the game itself. If we were doing Radio Row next week and you were bringing beautiful animals in and we were hanging out, 49ers perceived, I think, to be stumbling their way in when you're behind 24-7. I guess Brock Purdy, because of the pedigree of the draft pick and all that, perceived to be something different. I'll tell you what, Shanahan's a genius, right? I mean, just the scheming this thing up and how this thing will work. This is a fair fight. And I don't know that everybody wants to see Kansas City, San Francisco, but this feels like a fair fight to me.
I think it was going to be a tremendous game. And I think, I mean, if you're going to call Shanahan an offensive genius, what's Andy Reid? How does he draw up schemes in critical moments to get Travis Kelce open by 10 yards, by 15 yards? Everyone wants to double and take away Travis Kelce, yet he still finds ways to get him open. So there's, I think, offensive genius on both sides. Obviously, Spags is a great defensive coordinator. Steve Wilks has proven to leave a little bit to be desired back there and for the 49ers defensively, but they still got Fred Warner. They still got Bosa. They still got players and horses on all three levels of that defense. I think we're going to be treated to a tremendous football game. And in the end, I know it's quite early. We're just still recovering from championship weekend. I think Kansas City does it again. I think they do it again. I think they learned so much this season with their stumbles, with their uneven play. Heck, what started opening weekend of the season, they lost to the Detroit Lions. I think they've learned a lot. They've mentally toughened themselves. I was a part of a championship team that was toughened, had a rocky start to the season when I was at the University of Colorado. We won a national championship despite starting the season 1-1-1. One win, one loss, one tie, and we still won a national championship because we were toughened by that. And not just physically, but also mentally as well. And we needed that to get to where we got. And I think the Chiefs have been toughened, recognize the dwindling opportunity for a guy like Travis Kelce, find a way to get this done. And Kyle continues for the 49ers, this big game, kind of unexplainable collapses that he's had over his career.
I got to tell you, you've come into my life in many weird ways. We bumped into each other randomly in airports. I think the last time we were together. Yep. You wound up on my LinkedIn at the same time I had thought about you because I was in San Francisco, but I had thought about you even before I got to San Francisco because I was flying out of Denver. And I'm flying out of Denver. My phone is on the Southwest thing, and I looked up as we were taking off, and I thought that's pretty down there. And I looked, and I saw a little town, and I saw from above. We were starting to take off. I was on my way to Reno, and I looked down. I was right, and I looked on my phone, and I saw. Oh, that's Boulder. And I've been to Boulder. I thought it was Boulder. And I looked out the window. I even took a picture. I'm like, that's Boulder. And I looked it up on the map and it made me think of you. And I haven't talked to you since Prime took over.
Right.
Um, you're and I love Boulder. I've been there one time in my life, and I think I've told you I would move to Boulder tomorrow and live a very good life. It's a beautiful place. I don't know how people leave Boulder. Your thoughts about that part of the world, because Colorado was a little bit of a dormant program at various points when you and I have known each other over the last decade. No longer dormant for sure, and kind of you must have been shocked the day he took the job there, right?
I was a bit surprised. I can't lie because the program was on such a downward trajectory. I was questioning whether it was going to be a program in 5 or 10 years down the road, because it seemed like the cycle of a coach coming in, meeting a little bit of success, and leaving for greener pastures immediately. We saw that with Mel Tucker. So it was getting to the point where I was questioning the viability of the program overall, and what we were going to do in the future. Now to have Coach Prime, obviously brought a ton of eyeballs. The magical start to the season with the 3 wins in a row got everybody invested, got everybody interested. One of the most watched college programs, in the country versus programs that were heck traditional blue bloods and national champions. More eyeballs watching the Colorado Buffaloes. Clearly, once the Pac-12 schedule happened, things start to fall apart. Some of the holes within the program from a personnel standpoint, some of the holes in the inexperience for Coach Prime and his coaching acumen were exposed as the season went along as well. But I think it's a pretty bright future. Will they be a championship team? That remains to be seen. Do I love everything that Coach Prime has done? Frankly, I don't. But he has brought the program back to a relevant state in college football, brought eyeballs, brought attention, has brought in recruits. And the city of Boulder, which you were just talking about, I think someone did a study. He's brought in over $100 million to the university into the city. So for the $6 million they're paying him, which the athletic director Rick George said at the opening press conference, I don't know how I'm going to come up with the money to pay this guy. Well, the money's flowing. So that's a critical part of college football today is the money. He's certainly excited donors. So the NIL opportunities are there to build the program. So there's lots of great pieces in place. Again, I don't love everything, but I'm certainly stoked that this program that I thought was literally going to fold and not be a program anymore is now being talked about as one of the most exciting programs in all of college football.
I knew you were a proud alum. Chad Brown is here. He's doing right. Tell everybody what you're doing, because I don't know. You still have your snakes and you're a herpetologist, correct?
I still got a few reptiles. I don't have thousands and thousands as I once did when I was a commercial reptile breeder. I've got a small collection. My main focus nowadays is Ship Your Reptiles, where I help reptile businesses and reptile hobbyists and even the military mom who needs to get a little Timmy's turtle from Tennessee to Texas. I help them move their animals around the country. I've done an offshoot of that with Ship Your Aquatics, the same thing for people who need to ship their fish or their koi or coral for their aquariums. I have Ship Your Invertebrates for bug people who are into scorpions and tarantulas and things like that. And I just recently launched Ship Your Flora because there is a ever-growing houseplant market for people who are keeping roses and orchids and various species of houseplants. So I specialize in the shipping of living things that are difficult to go to your local FedEx ship center and say, here, I need to ship my snake to a friend. Nope, I can help you with that. I can sell you all the packaging materials, give you all the expertise and know-how, and along the way, save you some money with a great discounted label to make all that happen.
I know that you don't expect me to have a snake story for you today, but I do.
Oh,
So we moved out to the country about 2 years ago, and we knew that there are animals. And when the guy was building our place in the basement, he said, you're gonna have some snakes down here. And I'm like, I don't like snakes. So I went into the basement. I want to say early summer, maybe 5, 6 months ago, and my cat, 4 o'clock in the morning in the dark, is she's a hunter. She had cornered a snake, and this was a real big one, Chad. It might have been an inch long. I mean, it literally was about the size of the wire that's here. It's about this big right here, maybe 2 inches, and it was about this thickness. It was a big guy, and he was cornered up. And my cat didn't want to eat it; he was just kind of playing with it. And I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And then I saw it get up and could only have been a snake. And it was the tiniest little snake. And I took a cup, and here's my kind of shipping. This is how I shipped it. I didn't kill it. My wife would freak out. She doesn't even like the little stickies where the snakes come in and they die on it breaks her heart. So I put it in the cup. I took a video that and it was just in the bottom of the cup, and I took it outside, and I hope that it's living its best snake life outside, but that was my kind of shipping. So that's kind of shipping I do. But I'm not killing them on behalf of you because snakes, they do good things. Snakes do, right, in the wild.
Oh, snakes control the rodent population. We would be overrun with rodents. And, any place where there's, green space, if there were not snakes out there to keep those populations down. Same thing with spiders. People always want to kill spiders. Spiders control the insect population. So we need these things. So yes, I would appreciate if more folks would follow your example. And
I knew you'd be proud of me. And when I put the snake outside, I thought of you. I swear to God, I thought you're the only one I know that my wife likes snakes, but you and her, that's it. That's the only people I know. But I don't like them, but I'm caring. I care about it. So I don't like killing living things that I don't eat. And I
well,
don't.
I appreciate your mindset. And as my wife would say, she has an appreciation for their role, an appreciation from afar. She doesn't like to be close, but she appreciates their role and what they do from afar. She's good to from across
What
the
was
room.
your snake thing? Like, when were you 5? When did this happen for you? That you
I grew up in the hillsides of Southern California. So in my backyard, I saw snakes and lizards all the time. So this was always a lifelong fascination. My mother said no snakes when I was in her house. I got to University of Colorado my freshman year. Someone in the dorms had a boa for sale. I bought that boa. I went to a local pet store to get some information. I met a guy at a local pet store who's now been a lifelong friend. He was in my wedding. I was in his wedding.
isn't that
We have
beautiful? That's the kind of guy
we have
you are, though, dude. You keep people. You really do.
Yeah, we have traveled the globe together. We've been to Indonesia and Thailand and Costa Rica and done all kind of crazy adventures. So that's how the snake thing got started, with one snake in the dorms turned into this amazing friendship, which then turned into thousands and thousands of pond snakes when I was a commercial reptile breeder. So yeah, my snake journey has been quite interesting. And now I'm no longer a commercial breeder, but I help other people ship and enjoy their animals.
Well, look, your former teammate Rob Woodson is my favorite Hall of Famer. You are my favorite Pittsburgh Steeler.
Thank
And
you.
I threw Tomlin out. Chad Brown is here. We dig him. He's out in the desert doing things. Take care of snakes, taking good care of people. And I owe you dinner. We'll get together sometime in this lifetime. I always appreciate hearing from you and seeing you pop up, your name pop up on my feed from time to time. And I'm glad we got together. It's good seeing you, man.
Great to see you. Great to be on with you, man. Take care of yourself, buddy.
Chad Brown, and by the way, Tiesto playing the Super Bowl. Now that we gave him the seal of approval, me, you, and Julio at San
Yes.
Francisco, Tiesto's like a thing, you know?
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
That was a tremendous show. I look forward to him playing the Super Bowl. It's gonna be
I tell
fun.
people all the time, man, we ripped it up at Tiesto, and that's not my music at all, but it's
No.
pretty good when it was going on. Chad Brown can be found out on the interwebs. Go follow him out on the Twitter thing and the X thing and follow along. I'm trying to bring as many Radio Row alums onto the program this week as we get ready for a cup of soup or bowl. You come out, you bring the goods for the Maryland Food Bank. We give you a cup or bowl of Maryland crab, cream of crab. We even do 50-50 if you want, if you're daring into that kind of thing. Monday, we begin it at Faithley's, Tuesday at Costas, Wednesday at Coco's, Thursday at State Fair, Friday at Pappas in Cockeysville. And alas, there'll be no Purple Pep rally this year. We lost. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.